Text in truckwreck.com text line 877-881-1053. What is your level of trust on a 1 through 10?
Ooh, yeah. Are y'all ready?
Because I am interested. This is kind of a gauge that we've been continuing throughout. It's just an idea of like, all right, how comfortable are you in this? And I think at one point you had said that this team had caught your attention.
That's right.
Yeah. Are we still in attention, or do they have your curiosity? Like, where are we at now?
As long as this bullpen keeps doing what it does, it might only have my attention.
Okay.
Because the way they keep blowing games these days, shout out to the bullpen again last night for not handling business. They should have won that series against Atlanta. Should have taken 2 of 3 against the Atlanta Braves, but they did not. Because the bullpen once again. And here's the thing about this, and we'll get to the 5 ways the Rangers have built a first place roster here in just a moment.
I would ISO, but I don't feel like sliding right now.
Well, it's not, ISO worthy. It's just this is something that will continue to haunt this team until they find a way to fix it. And right now, you can't necessarily do that. We're still too early in the season to try and possibly make a move to improve the bullpen. So guess what you got to do? Ride it out.
Right? Like, it's just tough it out.
Take it on the chin right now.
It is tough it out time right now. Like that is the tough part about this. However, through all the things, the adversity that you have been given this far, and it's not like you have had no adversity thus far. They've done a good job managing this. And I think I mentioned this last time that we had this conversation. It was really a lot of credit to the managerial staff, chiefly Bruce Bochy, like finding ways to deal with this. And like, I mean this with all due respect to all of the pitchers that are in that bullpen, but you're dealing with, whatever little that you have and making something shake. And that's ultimately what it has, there's real delicate situations that you have to manage. And so he's managing the best that he can. But I mean, you still are in this place where, after 6 sub-500 seasons, this is a team that's sitting in first place in the AL West with some really good teams in the AL West, mind you, right? Like the Mariners are supposed to be a good team this year. The Astros, though they've had injuries, are supposed to be a good team this year, right? Even the Angels, like you maybe imagine that with the good players that they had, that they do a little something, right? Like this is not in any way one of them divisions that you look up and you go, yeah, but who cares, right? Like not like the Centrals, both AL and NL Central. We're not talking about that. Like this is a division rather that's pretty good, and you sit atop it. That means something. And the 5 ways that they have done that, they built this roster, are as follows. Let's start with the first one, which is the obvious one, right? If you had to say, what took this team from where it was before to where it is 2 years later, KG, what would you say?
Spend that money, Ray.
Impact free agent deals, baby. Right? Like putting that $325 million on the table for Corey Seager, $175 million on the table for Marcus Semien, John Gray for 56, Jacob deGrom for 186, right? Nathan Eovaldi for 34, Andrew Keeney for 25. Like these are the guys that have made a big difference on this team, right? Like this, you can't cut it any other way. That is a large point. Like I don't know if you think about it from like, hey, I need to fill this hole, right? The large blocks of this impact free agents, right? Like the big deals of this are having, and they've been the really great part of this team, or one of the really great parts of this team is just knowing that when you get up there, they're going to not only pitch well, but also go deep. Like, have you realized how many innings the starters on this team have handled?
I do not. I can't even put a number to it, to be honest with you.
I'm gonna get that stat for you because I know that like they have been incredible in going deep into this into games for the Rangers, and so like that's been really helpful, having starting pitchers and of course like staples, tent poles of your lineup. Corey Seager, who hasn't even played that much this year because
just got back,
but Marcus Semien, who is leading off and doing incredible things for you, right? Like so these dudes matter a ton. Like that's clearly thing number one. How about thing number two? The mid-level trades. What trades are we talking about? The likes of like Brock Burke in the bullpen, which, say what you will. You moved him, you got him in a move where you sent off Jurickson Profar. All right. How you want to deal with that? Taylor Hearn, who this season has not been as good as you would want, but he seems to be rehabbing himself decently at AAA. You got him for Keone Kela. Dane Dunning in the Lance Lynn trades.
You want something about the MVP of the bullpen so far.
and the starting rotation in some ways. Like he's been incredible for you.
He's been fantastic for them, yeah.
And that was something that you made a little something out of when you got, you were doing these little rehab stints for starting pitchers. You're like, hey, come here, we'll make you nice, and then we'll trade you and get something for you. Lance Lynn was one of those moves. He ended up going well and above the contract you signed him for. You send him somewhere else, and you end up with Dane Dunning, who had been solid in his time here previously, and then he comes out and he's been fantastic. Jonah Heim for the Elvis Andrus. When Elvis Andrus was done, let's face it, like it just seemed like he was largely done. And you've gotten Jonah Heim, who's been fantastic for you behind the plate.
Shout out to Elvis Andrus for doing a solid for the Rangers.
Mitch Garver was one of those mid-level deals, and Mitch Garver, who also has had some injuries, but when he is in the lineup, big bat.
Yeah,
right. Like you have a lot of mid-level deals that have worked out quite well. Right, like on the level there. So like those matter. And then you could also look at the likes of the things that brought you Nathaniel Lowe. I was about to call him Nate, but his mama said don't call him Nate.
That's
call
right.
him Nathaniel.
That's
Nathaniel
right.
Lowe. That was the Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo move was the next one that brought you Ezekiel Duran, who was out here balling.
Real quick on that. They've got to continue to find a way to keep him in the lineup. I don't know how you're going to continue to do it consistently.
I think left field maybe, but Robbie Grossman's been playing a lot of left.
That's what I'm saying. But Duran has been hitting and playing so well.
Then once Corey Seager gets back.
What do you do? Because Duran
also,
deserves to remain in this lineup now.
Can I ask you a question? Because Ezekiel Duran is still blocked, right? Like it's one of the things you're talking about here, trying to keep him in the lineup. And blocked for some years. I know some people look at it like, we can't get rid of him. Like, does that not sound like the fantastic trading piece that you would want to utilize to make this team even better? Like, isn't that the benefit of having a good farm, which is what you have right now?
Rangers have a really good problem right now. They've got a lot of young, talented players.
Let me know. Truckred.com text line. Are you in the place where you're like, Ezekiel Duran must be on this team? Or are you just in the place where you're like, hey, now that he has showed himself to be a big league player, maybe you can get a little something for that?
We got to see it a little bit more, but he's earned his spot in the lineup right now. He's played extremely well for the Texas Rangers.
Third way, draft and international players, but draft really, when the name that comes to mind when I start talking about the draft, what you like to call him?
Young Money.
Josh Jung has been fantastic.
Young Money.
Like he has been as advertised. Maybe better than advertised.
He's legit Rookie of the Year candidate. Legit. And you see now the future of third base for the next 10 years.
And I guess someone is also bringing up, I'll get to that later, 817. But yes, Josh Jung, fantastic. Third base is his.
It's his now.
Forever and ever. Amen. Right? Like that is where he's at.
Open the doors of the church.
Yeah, like that. Then you could talk about the likes of Leody Taveras, who we got international 2015. You could talk about Hernandez, Leclerc. I know people feeling a little sideways about that right now.
I'm talking about Jose Leclerc right now.
Bubba Thompson.
Let Bubba cook.
First rounder of 2017. Even like Sam Huff, Joe Barlow, some of these other guys and then guys that are on the outskirts that are maybe looking in. Evan Carter, who will be a big leaguer relatively soon. Owen White, who has looked fantastic in his seasons prior in the minors, right? And then we can start talking about all of the farm that that has made them a really good farm system.
Yeah.
And then the idea that those are guys that you could maybe move to help make the big league club better, or maybe come up and fill in on the big league club. Like the way that this team has drafted and in some ways developed deserves some level of commendation.
And you know what? It's funny because obviously Chris Young is going to get a ton of credit, especially for the free agency moves that they've had.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been a slow burn for some years. And while you can lament the fact that maybe the Rangers didn't start the rebuild process as early as they should have relative to what they were performing like year over year, but you look at some of these players that we've named here, a lot of these players under John Daniels' watch. So while, yes, things didn't end the way for him that he wanted it to, a lot of the talent that's here because of this farm system and how good it is, this was under the auspices of John Daniels.
Small trades. Hey, you realize that Adolis Garcia was DFA'd by the Cards at 26?
That's right.
And then you end up with him, and you even DFA'd him yourself to get Mike Fultonevich, or if that's how his name was pronounced, I've forgotten already, a roster spot. And now you had this dude who's like an all-star, and it's a fantastic defensive right fielder and an even better offensive play.
We don't talk about that enough. That cat should not be here.
Josh Spores is also one of those guys on a low-level trade. Or you got some.
They've hit
small free agent deals with someone want to mention. Will Smith being like the best guy out of your bullpen right now was a dude that was unemployed halfway through spring training.
But yeah, you're right to the Adolis Garcia point. At one point, this organization didn't even want him, and he has turned himself into a fantastic ball player. In fact, Chris Jung the other day, when talking about Adolis Garcia, said, look, he's one of the top players in the game today, not just in the American League, in the game, which is high praise for somebody who has turned his career around. And I don't know why base runners continue to try Adolis Garcia.
Cannon.
Try at your own peril, because Adolis Garcia is not having it. One of the best outfield arms that we have in today's Major League Baseball.
So yeah, like those are the ways that this team's built. Like as much as I think you mentioned John Daniels, like the tenure there was just like you did not rebuild, but like the underlying things in this organization of like the talent acquisition, it's a long game, and you're starting to see some of the benefits of that. But being able to put that together, and of course, we can also still talk about the fact that putting all that money on the table, we're still the big blocks, and that happened towards the end and into the Chris Jung time. And Chris Jung also obviously put it all together with a lot of these deals, right? Evaldi, DeGrom, and I guess another part of this that we can't ignore, bringing in Bruce Bochy, happened on the new regime. But there was all these pieces come together and bring you a team that is currently first place in the AL West. And maybe hopefully remains first place in the AL West for a good time before we get to the place where you can upgrade your bullpen, and maybe they could be cooking with grease at that point.